Good morning. If we could ask you to find your seats so we'll get our program started, we'll thank you very much. We're very proud to have this meeting today in Atlanta of the U.S. Saudi Arabian Business Delegation and want to welcome you to our city. I'm Sam Williams, President of the Metro Atlanta Chamber, and we have businesses all over Metro Atlanta that are members of our organization, and we also do a lot of business internationally, recruiting companies to move to Atlanta as well as bilateral trade. So to have this audience before us today is a great honor for us, and we're so glad that you're here. As a point of personal privilege, my experience with Saudi Arabia goes back 40 years. Minister Al-Reza, his family hired the company I was working for, John Portman and Associates, to design Al-Reza Center in 1972. We were both much younger then, Minister, but my memories go back very pleasantly, and we're so honored to have all of you here today. So let's get started. I think we have some great speakers and some great panelists that are here today. And the other thing I'd like to say is that this is such a fortuitous time because the relationships between Saudi Arabia and the United States have never been more important than they are now. And as we read the media every day, we depend very greatly on the relationship between the U.S. and the Kingdom for stability in the region and also understanding and having you interpret and help us understand what's really going on. And I think that's a great thing about some of our speakers. I want to introduce now Ms. Lubna Olayan. She is a very experienced financial leader in the Mideast, in Saudi Arabia. She's the CEO and Deputy Chairperson of Olayan Financing, a holding entity for the Olayan Group's operations in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the Mideast. Founded in 1947, the Olayan Group is a private multinational enterprise engaged in distribution, manufacturing, services, and investments. They frequently partner with multinational corporations on investments in the Mideast as well. They are also major investors in the Saudi and regional stock markets. She is on the board of directors of Slumbler, the Saudi Hollande Bank, and also an international and advisory board of the National Bank of Kuwait and Rolls-Royce. Time magazine, interestingly, named her as one of the most 100 influential people in the world in 1905, and Forbes has named her as the most 2005. Excuse me, Lubna. I need another cup of coffee. And to top that, Forbes magazine has also named her as one of the most 100 influential women in the world for several years. So it's with a great privilege that we hear from her now. And Olayan, please join us.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for this beautiful introduction. And good morning, all. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. Mayor, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be here in Atlanta to discuss how we continue to strengthen the long-standing economic cooperation between Saudi Arabia and the U.S. So for all of us, the starting point on which we should base our discussions over these next 2 days is the long, tried, and tested friendship and trust between our two countries. I'm especially pleased to be here at a conference co-organized by the Committee for International Trade, because my father was the founder of this organization many years ago and its first chairman. And I'm sure that he would be very happy to see us gather here in Atlanta today to further the cooperation between our two countries. And what an interesting time for us to meet together. It is the final month of a year that I'm sure will go down as one of the more interesting in recent history, in which we have seen the financial crisis gather strength. 5 governments in Europe fall, and an American friend observed 2 of those bypassed the democratic process to install technocratic governments. Major cities around the world occupied, and finally, the landscape of the Middle East forever changed. The reasons varied, the reactions varied, and the outcomes varied, or in some cases remain unknown, but there are lessons to be learned. First, progress requires change, and real change requires progress. The only logical conclusion, therefore, is that we are better served by cooperating in managing change rather than closing our eyes to it. And regardless of where we sit, we are all certainly affected and impacted by what happens in this globalized world we have created. With all this volatility around us, I am pleased that for a change, Saudi Arabia was actually a bit ahead of the curve as a result of King Abdullah having taken the view several years ago that it was indeed best to allow and manage change in a manner that reflected our needs, our traditions and culture, and our people's ability to accept and deal with the change in a responsible manner. Saudi Arabia is, you must remember, a relatively young country. And if you look at our development over the last 80 years, you will see that we in Saudi Arabia and the relationships between Saudi Arabia and American companies have come a long way. And since the first cooperation between our 2 countries in the 30s, there has certainly been a strong American influence on our development. Defense, oil, engineering, project management, financial regulation, and medicine are all areas where there is a long history of cooperation. American institutions, from its universities to its banks to its multinationals, have influenced our students, our future leaders, our businessmen, and our institutions, including one of our greatest institutions, Aramco. It was actually his experience dealing with American colleagues at Aramco that prompted my father to approach US companies and later make trips to the US in the 40s and 50s, which resulted in his establishing trading and other relationships with a range of US companies, from Kimberly-Clark to Cummins, Kenworth to Bechtel, and many of those relationships have grown into real partnerships lasting more than half a century. Cooperation between our government agencies and private sector and American engineering and construction firms quite literally built our cities and our industrial plants. And as I look at my colleagues in the audience, including several of our government officials, it is striking how many of us have had our undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate education, and in many cases, even our training here in the US, myself included. For us, the US has been a source of knowledge that we brought back home. Today, we are certainly looking to our east, and we watch carefully the great potential of China and India. But the connection to the US and the relationships we developed here as a result, personal, professional, and corporate, tend to pull us back in this direction and influence how we think and who we partner with as we go about our business. But like all relationships, the relationship between the US and Saudi Arabia has at times been strained and tested. And like all close partners, neither of us wants to be taken for granted. In Riyadh, as well as the Arab Street, the US has over the last few years lost credibility, especially in relation to what has been and remains a central issue of concern, the Israeli-Palestinian situation. The broader interests of our two countries would be well served if business leaders from both countries made every effort they can to ensure that there is some sense of balance, both in word and deed, to the US position on that central issue. But there has been perhaps no greatest test of our relationship than 9/11. And for a period, it looked as though the relationship was damaged beyond repair. But thankfully, it was not. It rebounded, a testament to the strength of the long-term relationship and shared values that bind our countries together, and to the persistent efforts of several officials, educators, and businessmen from both our countries. But some politicians in the US still argue that there is an urgent need to move away from Saudi Arabia, to break the dependence on Saudi oil. But in reality, over the last 5 years, the US got on average less than 12% of its oil from us. And that argument ignores the fact that we get a whole bunch of things from you in return, ranging from F-15s to Coca-Cola, to a master plan for King Abdullah University for Science and Technology, to Xerox copiers and printers, to Colgate toothpaste, and to assistance from most of your leading universities. As in any successful relationship, it has always been a two-way street that works to our mutual benefit. Today, bilateral trade between the US and the Kingdom has grown to over $42 billion, encompassing trading, manufacturing, and services. Saudi Arabia is the US 14th largest trading partner, and there are currently about 360 joint ventures between Saudi and US companies with a value in excess of $20 billion. But the Saudi market has even more potential to offer. Today, ours is the largest free market economy in the Arab world, and we are a member of the G20. Our nominal GDP for 2011 is forecasted to be about $540 billion, just shy of that of the UAE and Egypt combined. We have a young and growing population with relatively strong buying power. Aramco is the largest oil company in the world. SABIC now ranks amongst the top 3 petrochemical companies in the world. Our banks are among the top rated in the industry based on capital adequacy, liquidity, and profitability. Our government remains focused on attracting and retaining FDI and on diversifying our economy by growing the non-oil sectors and encouraging local manufacturing. We are the largest industrial producer in the Arab world, and the World Bank's 2011 report on ease of doing business, we were ranked 12th in that. And I can assure you that I and all of us who have come here from Saudi Arabia want to see our growth, development, and success lead to even closer ties between our two business communities. Mayor Reid, we certainly look forward to what you have to say to us. And I'm sure we all look forward to the discussions over the course of today and tomorrow, which will focus on a range of topics of interest to all of us, such as how we are weathering the financial storm, in which Dr. Al-Jasser, the governor of Sama, will share his views. Healthcare delivery, in which Dr. Rabia, our Minister of Health, will outline what we are doing in the kingdom. an exploration of the opportunities for finance and investment in which Secretary Cohen will share his experience, the future of oil and petrochemical industries, and opportunities in water and electricity and renewable energy. An exchange of views on the state of relationship from a diplomatic perspective, in relation to which we will hear this evening and tomorrow from Ambassador Al-Muallimi, General Smith, and Dr. Abdurrahman Al-Saeed. I am sure there will certainly be some rather interesting exchanges. Given the importance of education to our progress in the kingdom and to the relationship between our two countries, though, it is fitting that our first session this morning is on education, and that Prince Faisal will have the opportunity to share with us his insights into the way he is managing changes to the educational system in the kingdom. Finally, as I said earlier, the links forged from education has been one of the key factors that has allowed us to rebound from serious challenges and strains in our relationship. Today, we have a record number of over 55,000 students, our future leaders, studying in this country, 47,000 of whom are here on government scholarships, of which 30% are females. This makes me optimistic about the future of our two countries and confident that despite all that is going on around us and all the challenges that we face, we are two countries that will continue to build on the cooperation of the last 80 years and further strengthen the ties that bind us. Thank you very much.